Good morning, grade 7. So today we will start with the first chapter for this semester, which is the phrase. A phrase, it's a word group that is used as one part of a speech and that doesn't contain a subject and a verb. So you need to know that when we say a phrase, that means that we don't have a subject and a verb combination, okay? We have types of phrases. We have the prepositional phrase. A prepositional phrase in a sentence can function as two types of phrases. It can function as an adjective phrase or as an adverb phrase. Okay? So again, we have the prepositional phrase. It can function as an adjective phrase or as an adverb phrase. It's according to its position in the sentence. Prepositional phrases. A prepositional phrase consists of a preposition, modifiers, and object of preposition. We took this before. When we say an object of preposition, that means it's the first noun after the preposition. And sometimes between the preposition and the object of preposition, you may have some modifiers like articles, like adjectives, etc. Okay? So, for example, when you say, an insect flew near my head, the preposition here is near. So here we start the prepositional phrase. We start it with near. Then we look for the first noun after the preposition, which is head. So we end up with near my head. This is the prepositional phrase. Again, a prepositional phrase here is near my head. The preposition is near, the modifier here is my, and the object of preposition, which is the first noun after the preposition, is head. And of course, you need to know that sometimes you may have more than one of object of preposition for the preposition, okay? So you may have one preposition and more than one object of preposition, okay? As I said before, a prepositional phrase may function as an adjective phrase or as an adverb phrase according to its position in the sentence. So let's see. It's an adjective phrase when the prepositional phrase modifies a noun or a pronoun. So when it modifies a noun or a pronoun, we call it an adjective phrase. Okay? And it's easy because it follows the noun it modifies directly. So once you find the prepositional phrase, it follows the noun or the pronoun it modifies directly. So this is an easy feature for an adjective phrase, okay? It answers the questions like what kind, which one, how many, how much, okay? So when you ask these questions and the prepositional phrase answers these questions, it is an adjective phrase. So for example, let's see. A woman in the street fell down. So here we have this prepositional phrase, in the street. Is it an adjective phrase or an adverb phrase? Let's see. It follows a noun, which is woman. See, it follows the noun directly. So here we can know. And which woman? The woman in the street. So it follows the noun directly and it answers the question, which one or which woman, right? So here we can say that this is an adjective phrase. Another example. I have written a lot of stories about loyalty. So about loyalty, this is the prepositional phrase. Okay? Let's see. It answers the question, what kind of stories? Stories about loyalty. So it answers the question, what kind? And it follows the noun, stories, directly. So it modifies stories. What kind of stories? Stories about loyalty. So this is an adjective phrase. Okay, so again, when you have a prepositional phrase that comes directly after a noun and it answers one of these questions, we call it an adjective phrase. Okay? Now, an adverb phrase, it's when you have a prepositional phrase that modifies a verb, an adjective, or an adverb. Okay? Unlike adjective phrases, adverb phrases may appear anywhere in a sentence. So it doesn't necessarily come after the word that it modifies. This is for adverb phrases. They may come before or after the words they modify. Also, other words may come between them. So we don't have like one position for them, unlike adjective phrases. Okay? It answers questions like when, where, why, how often, how long. So let's see this example. After swimming lessons, Sarah drove us home. So the prepositional phrase here is after swimming lessons. What does it modify? It modifies the verb drove. When Sarah drove us home. When, it answers the question when. So here we have this prepositional phrase that functions as an adverb phrase. So we have it as an adverb phrase. Why? Again, because it modifies the verb drove and it answers the question when. Now let's discuss clauses. When we say phrases, we said phrase doesn't necessarily have, or it doesn't have a subject and a verb combination. Unlike clauses, clauses has or have subject-verb combination, okay? We have two types of clauses. We have an independent clause and subordinate clause, okay? Subordinate clause can come as two types. We have adjective clause and adverb clause. So again, what is the difference between a phrase and a clause? A phrase is used as a part of speech, and it doesn't contain a verb and its subject. So it can't be used as a sentence. Since it doesn't have a subject and verb combination, that means we can't use it as a sentence. Unlike clauses, a clause contains a verb and its subject. It means it has the subject-verb combination. That's why it can be used as a sentence. So this is the main difference between phrases and the clauses. Now, what is the difference between independent and subordinate clause? An independent clause, it's a clause that expresses a complete thought and that can stand alone in a sentence. So for example, when you say, I sleep when I'm hungry or when I'm angry or tired. So I sleep is an independent clause. It can stand alone in a sentence. So we can say I sleep and then we stop. We don't have to add anything else to complete the meaning. The meaning is complete. Tamam? For subordinate clause, it's a clause that doesn't express a complete thought and that can't stand alone in a sentence. So, a subordinate clause, it contains a subject and a verb combination. So you will have a subject and you will have a verb, but you don't have a complete thought. You need other words to continue or to complete the meaning. Okay? It can be introduced and it is introduced by a subordinating conjunction, like because, although, and you can check your book's page 388. It must be joined to one independent clause at least to express the complete thought or to make a sentence. So for example, when you say, I sleep when I'm angry or tired, if you take the clause when I'm angry or tired alone, does it express a complete thought? When I'm angry or tired? It doesn't, right? You need to join an independent clause to complete the meaning. That's why we call it a subordinate clause or dependent clause. It depends on another clause to complete the meaning. So, and it doesn't, it can't stand alone in a sentence. Okay? So this is the main difference between independent and subordinate clause. Here you have examples of subordinating conjunctions like after, although, as, because, before, even though, if, in order to, since, than, that, though, etc. Have a look on them. Now, you have to differentiate between the adjective clause and the adverb clause. An adjective clause, it is a subject-verb combination that modifies a noun or a pronoun. So you have a subject and a verb, okay? And they modify or describe a noun or a pronoun, okay? One easy feature for it, it follows the noun or the pronoun, it modifies directly. So once you see a subject and a verb combination, okay, following a noun or a pronoun, it is an adjective clause. It tells which one or what kind, so it answers these two questions. So for example, when you say, I visited the town where they met. So you have the clause where they met. Look here, it starts with the subordinating conjunction where. You have a subject they and a verb met. Alone, you can't have it alone. It can't stand alone as a sentence where they met, right? Because it's not a question here, it's part of the sentence. And it describes the noun town. So which town? The town where they met. Look, it follows the noun, it modifies directly. Okay, this is for the adjective clause. Now for the adverb clause, it is a subject-verb combination that modifies a verb, an adverb, or an adjective. Okay, so you have, again, you have a subject and you have a verb, and they modify a verb, an adverb, or an adjective. It answers questions like when, where, why, how often, how long. So for example, when you say, since the toddler was shy, she hid behind her mother. So where is the clause? Since, or the subordinate clause first, it is since the toddler was shy. This is our subordinate clause. What type of subordinate clause is it? Adjective clause or adverb clause? Let's see. Let's see which question does it answer. Why she hid behind her mother? Since the toddler was shy. So it answers the question why. Then it is an adverb clause. Okay? It is an adverb clause that modifies the verb hid. Now let's go to our third part of this unit, which is the sentence structure. A sentence structure, we have many types of sentences. You may have a simple sentence. A simple sentence has one independent clause and no subordinate clauses. So you will have one independent clause. Okay, when I say independent, that means you have subject and verb that can stand alone as a sentence. Okay? It may have a compound subject and a compound verb. For example, when you say Jeanette read the story. So you have subject Jeanette, read as the verb, the story. This is one independent clause. Jeanette and Sally read the story. You have a compound subject here, but still you have one simple sentence, one independent clause. Jeanette and Sally read the story and analyzed it. Look here, you have two subjects or a compound subject and two verbs or a compound verb. But still, you have one simple subject, one simple sentence. So again, a simple sentence, it's one independent clause, a subject and a verb, or compound subject and a compound verb. Okay? And no subordinate clauses of any kind. The second type of sentences, we have the compound sentence. It consists of two or more independent clauses, usually joined by Two ways. So here you have to know, when I say compound sentence, you have two independent clauses. How would we join these two clauses? You have two ways. You either use a comma and a coordinating conjunction. You know what a coordinating conjunction? It is one of the fanboys. Fanboys is short for and, or, but, yet, and so. And of course, it is preceded by a comma. So for example, when you say, I forgot my lunch, comma, so my dad drove me to the school. So here you have two independent clauses. First independent clause is, I forgot my lunch. Second independent clause is, my dad drove me to the school. And these two independent clauses are combined or joined together by a coordinating conjunction, so, and of course a comma before it. If you don't want to use a coordinating conjunction and a comma, you can delete both of them and use a semicolon instead. So you can say, I forgot my lunch, semicolon, my dad drove me to the school. So you have two ways to combine a compound sentence. Third type of sentences is a complex sentence. When you say it, a complex sentence consists of one independent clause and at least one subordinate clause. So unlike simple sentences and compound sentences, which do not include any subordinate clause, here you have, in the complex sentence, you have a subordinate clause with them. The subordinate clause begins with words like who, whose, which, that, after, as, if, since, and when. So for example, when you say, although my friends begged me, I chose not to go to the reunion. So the independent clause here is, I chose not to go to the reunion. And it is attached to a subordinate clause, which is, although my friends begged me. Look here, although my friends begged me. It can't stand alone in a sentence, and it starts with although. Okay? So when you have a subordinate clause and an independent clause together, we call it a complex sentence. Fourth type of sentences is what we call compound complex sentence. It consists of two or more independent clauses and at least one subordinate clause. So for example, when you say, when I grow up, I want to be a ballerina and my mom is proud of me. So the subordinate clause here is, when I grow up. Can it stand alone as a sentence? No. Then it's a subordinate clause. I want to be a ballerina and my mom is proud of me. Independent clause. Okay? It's a compound sentence. Independent clause. So when you have a subordinate clause and a compound sentence or an independent clause, we call it a compound complex sentence. Thank you.